what the president is doing is saying that education needs to be returned to the states, that where education is best taught and is best understood, where it's closest to the child. He wants parental rights protected. He wants to make sure that students are not trapped in failing schools.
Another Supreme Court victory for President Trump. Justices giving the green light for the White House to dismantle the Department of Education and proceed with mass layoffs. Trump celebrating this win on Truth Social, writing this. The Supreme Court has handed a victory to parents and students by returning the Education Department's functions back to the states. The federal government has been running our education system into the ground, but we're going to turn it around by giving power back to the people. And there's a large swath of the country that would love to see this, Brian. And they really think everything's been mishandled. But this is also, so there's two issues here. One, the power going back to the states, but also, again, the Supreme Court issuing this ruling to Trump and showing that lower courts. Just
You should be able to dismantle a division of the government if you're the president of the United States. I know Justice Sotomayor feels differently. I understand. And that. A couple of things. Linda McMahon, when she got her job, goes, I'm looking to put myself out of business. Right. She's been the most consequential, one of the most consequential secretaries. Been helping me out and helping out Long Island, taking on the politically correct name of the Chiefs and the Warriors and doing that hard work there. Now suing and getting American Indians involved, to actually taking on the elite education that's saying there's too many foreign students and the anti-Semitism won't last and the curriculum better be diversified. But I personally, fundamentally, still have not had it effectively explained to me that if you're upset by the way education is done in our country, that the American history is not taught and kids aren't functioning, we're not getting the results, how does lessening control help you? Because Chicago's only going to get worse. The people that have a different philosophy are only going to go more in that direction because they're going to get free from oversight.
I think the answer to that is they just really don't give a damn, and they say they do, but they don't. And the stupider American kids get, the more power and control they get. And that's why they want the status quo to remain. Mark Andreessen, one of Dagan's favorites, in a leaked message said this. Let's see. He torched the top universities, saying they've, quote, declared war on 70% of the country. That's just the university aspect of it. On the primary education aspect of it, Brian, we've talked about this a lot. Give parents school choice. Give them the opportunity not to pay taxes that go to an education system they don't like, and they can homeschool or they can go to private school. But the wokesters who are controlling the system and brainwashing the kids, they don't want that, because if you have choice, you will exercise that option.
Well, what Trump's doing is he's trying to push this down to the state level. So, like in Chicago.
But some states, he's not going to want it at the state level.
No. But here's, so you push it down to the state level and say, you guys have to figure this out. The beauty of doing it at the state level is people can vote with their feet. Okay. So if you send it to Chicago and Chicago says, no school choice, we love the way it's always been done, it just creates more incentive for people to leave that state. I mean, like the Department of Education was providing any useful oversight for American education. I mean, if they were doing anything, we wouldn't have Chicago's. And in fact, I mean, in my, this is a university level, but my experience with the Department of Education and the federal bureaucracy period is they didn't help you at all. They put restrictions in your way and regulations and rules. You got to start letting these people use that bathroom. And we're not going to give you any, we're not going to approve your accreditation if you're a religious component to your school. All of that stuff. How did that help education in America? To me, I'm saying devolve it and let them deal with it.
Is a cesspool. And if you choose to live there and you want to go down that route, more power to you. I mean, that's not my issue, but I just think that this offers red states more of an opportunity to change the system a little.
I agree, but to play devil's advocate, let me agree
I'll be
with
the
Brian.
devil.
No, I'm going to try to agree with you. I actually, in theory,
still the devil,
this
though.
Brian, agree. School choice, and as a parent, I want to control with the voucher where my child goes. But if we talk about Chicago or inner city New York, the poor kids don't have the opportunity to leave. The wealthy can move. I can go to Jersey, I can go to Florida, whatever. An inner city Black kid in Chicago, his mom can't move to the suburb with the nice school. So he's trapped there, that little kid.
Yeah.
That is a death sentence for that kid to be trapped there. What then when that just gets worse as the wealthy leave and leave?
No, I agree, but the DOE has provided cover for local districts to do the things that are destroying education.
But why not fix the DOE then?
Because we are fixing it. We don't need a DOE to provide oversight. They've never provided oversight for schools such that they've made schools better. Since 1979, where have test scores gone, up or down? Have they ever gone up? Have they ever gotten better? They've always gotten worse. It's the wrong mechanism. It assumes the government can do a parent's job, and that's never going to work.
Or make the test easier.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not going to help, Jake.
Great equation.
I will eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because I find it so delicious what the Trump administration has tried to do to the elitist hate cult
It's awesome.
indoctrination
I never thought they could.
factories at the universities. You mentioned that what Mark Andreessen said. Here's just the quote of what he was talking about. Stanford University and MIT are operating as, quote, mainly political lobbying operations fighting American innovation. That look at the sharp rise in foreign enrollment.
If you like wasting money on ED meds, just keep scrolling. Oh, you're still here. Good. So here's the deal.
At top universities. You look at foreign enrollment rates at the biggest universities that went from 2 to say 4% 50 years ago. They are now 27, 30%, 50%. There's the fundamental question. What level of untapped talent exists in this country that a combination of DEI and immigration have basically cut out of the loop for the last 50 years? And how long can can we have this story to everybody in the Midwest and in the South that says, sorry, because of historical oppression, your kids are out of luck. That's what these universities have done. And the tech companies know it because they're the ones that hired these left wing nut anarchists out of these universities. In like between 08 and 11 and came into the companies, and they saw them, as Andreessen himself said, join tech companies to figuratively burn them to the ground. That said, why are there so many white men on your board? Why are you a for-profit company? You better stop emitting carbon. And all of the tech executives, the people who founded these companies, knew that what these universities were up to, and they kept hiring people from them. Just stop hiring people. You know what? Starve them. These tech companies have the ability, these large American companies have the ability to starve these universities. Stop hiring from them. Start hiring out of high school. Go into the South and the Midwest and give somebody with who's 18 with a brain a chance. You train them. Don't hire somebody with a Harvard degree. Screw Harvard.
the media is reporting that President Trump will announce a deal to send defensive weapons to Ukraine this afternoon, along with a plan to provide offensive long-range missiles later. The same media is boasting that this will create a complete break with all of us outside the corrupt beltway who believe the president would end the Ukraine war. That enemy boast assumes that Trump is abandoning his quest for peace and his break with America's post-war role as world policeman for the modern British financial empire. I believe it's political theater and a calculated deal-making gambit amidst a very complex situation. Trump is continuing his mission to transform achieve lasting peace. I'm Barbara Boyd. I've seen British psychological warfare tactics firsthand as applied to political organizations. Creating division using emotionally charged issues like child rape, civilian massacres, and war is a favorite tool of these mind benders. Today, I'm going to first cover Trump's planned announcement this afternoon about defending Ukraine and bringing Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table.
What would you say to men who think therapy is a sign of weakness?
When you have a proven
Next, I'll tell you about his new war against the Federal Reserve and his new moves to dismantle the deep state, along with the continuing fallout about the fake Epstein controversy. And last, I'm going to talk about what you can do to keep your mind clear in these times of necessarily turbulent change. Before we get started, if you haven't already, go to the Promethean Action website and subscribe. We want to be in contact with you outside Google's controlled space. So what's up with the Ukraine decision? Trump's battle for peace means ending our role as world policemen for the British financial empire, while building solid nation-to-nation trade rather than globalization. Is it possible that the president has abandoned that and will now escalate the war in Ukraine, as Lindsey Graham and other crazed armchair generals claimed this weekend? Here's what we know. First, the British Empire's strategic policy is to snatch and loot Eurasia, starting with Russia, and that's the reason for their war in Ukraine. As opposed to Biden, Trump has fought that, opening dialogue with Putin for the first time in years and placing himself completely outside the mindset of our agencies and lobbying congressmen. He seeks a great power alliance with Russia and China and has staked his presidency on creating that. Despite this, Putin has continued the war aggressively and, according to Axios this morning, told Trump directly that the war will be solved by Russia militarily. That decision by Putin, if indeed it has been made, rests on the calculation that NATO will continue to attack Russia even without the United States, and that Trump is still not fully in control of the British Empire's forces in our military and intelligence community. Whether today's big announcement is part of a negotiating gambit or a mistake based on rigged intelligence briefings remains to be seen. It has little to do with realities on the ground in this war, which has been lost for some time. Russia knows that NATO does not have the industrial capacity or the will to sustain it. Now, both Putin and Trump are under enormous pressure to resolve the war militarily. Putin from his population and Trump from our deep state. The U.S. Senate is making an effort to language in the National Defense Authorization Act, which comes up Tuesday, to bar Trump from pulling out of the Ukraine war without their approval. There is also talk of Trump imposing secondary sanctions on China, India, and others buying Russian oil which could jeopardize Trump's entire economic strategy. Despite this afternoon's deal-making gambit, there are still hopeful signs here. Secretary Rubio and Sergei Lavrov discussed a new approach to a Ukraine ceasefire in a meeting on Friday in Kuala Lumpur. And Putin is also continuing to aid Trump's peace efforts in the Middle East, telling Iran last week to agree to a peace deal with no uranium enrichment. We'll have more to say about this as it develops. But the lesson here, from our standpoint, is that there can be no compromises in targeting the modern British financial empire directly and educating the citizenry about the real stakes in this war. Now about the Fed. Toward the end of last week, the president opened a big attack on the Federal Reserve, which is the central nodal point of British imperial control of our economy. Let's listen to Jimmy Shelton, who Trump nominated to the Fed in his first term.
I think the Fed has a lot to answer for, and I
Yes.
think they're quite vulnerable on a number of fronts. Their models are off, and that they're afraid of economic growth. But now we're talking about a specific mechanism, which is the way the Fed manages interest rates is by paying commercial banks to keep the money sitting in cash at the Fed. So there's now 3.3 trillion sitting there, and the banks are collecting 4.4% on that. I think that the average American would be outraged, and I think the president would be furious because 44% of the over 600 billion that the Fed has been paying as interest payments to commercial banks since it started running an operating loss in September of 2022, 44% is going to foreign banks.
Did you hear what she just said? The Fed is insolvent, running in the red since 2022 because of Jay Powell's mismanagement. $30 trillion of private bank money, which should be lent into the economy, is parked there, paying interest to the banks at 4%. And a large share of that interest money is going to foreign banks. Powell's lavish remodeling of the Fed building is also under attack by the White House and the OMB. This attack just could result in repurposing the Fed into an institution favoring Trump's American system policies, forcing and facilitating the lending of funds by major banks into projects critical to our economic revival. We're going to fight to make that happen. Now, let's listen to Tulsi Gabbard at last week's Turning Point Student Conclave about the status of the war to take down our deep state.
You think the campaign was hard. You think what President Trump went through was hard, and it was. The road ahead will not be easy. I can attest personally that in my work as the director of national intelligence, the deep state is fighting us every step of the way. And it exists within every single federal agency. And so I feel the same frustration that I see many of you expressing on X or in different platforms about why aren't things going faster? Why aren't we getting results more quickly? I feel this frustration every single day. We are pushing hard. Know that they are pushing hard back.
Her point is well taken. When looking at the non-answers we have around Butler assassin Thomas Crooks and the other assassination attempts and most other incidents in the 10-year coup we have all suffered through. It's also relevant to the current eruptions about Jeffrey Epstein. The deep state is still alive and fighting back. We've been down a hard road, but it's about to get harder until we succeed in fully purging this virus from our system. They are fighting back. Until last week, when the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration was free to fire people, there were constraints on purges at DOJ, state, and elsewhere. As of Friday, however, it's been full speed ahead, with wholesale sacking of J6 prosecutors and agents and special counsel Jack Smith's prosecutors and agents, along with more than 1,000 State Department employees. Also last week, the Department of Justice opened investigations on John Brennan and James Comey. That concerns Obama's fake intelligence assessment that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help Trump. But John Solomon reported on Saturday that's only part of a much larger conspiracy case, which has been under construction at the Department of Justice for months and covers the entire legal coup up to the 2024 election. I have to think that you have to look at the possibility that the Epstein flap has been engineered to prevent just this case from coming to fruition. I also think this case won't work unless it starts from the top. And that means, you guessed it, ending the cover-up of the British role here.
Try this 15-second ritual before bed and see what happens to toenail fungus while you sleep.
They instigated and ran large parts of the ongoing coup against Trump, starting with GCHQ dossiers compiled on his campaign staffers beginning in 2015. We have covered this extensively, from the dirty Christopher Steele dossier to the British operations against Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, and others, which were laundered through the CIA and State Department to the FBI, and, of course, the 24-hour media sliming and information war run through the British Foreign Office's Integrity Initiative cells in our media. That has been critical and the covered up most element missing in everything in these investigations to date. Now, in my Saturday wrap, I laid out the case for Jeffrey Epstein being a high-level intelligence asset of several intelligence agencies with a primary skill set in laundering dirty money for the wealthy and intelligence services into British offshore money havens. Any U.S. files about his crimes, if they exist, are held by case officers in the CIA and were never at the FBI. It's also likely that his real owners are British intelligence or the Mossad, in which case you're chasing ghosts, as President Trump said over the weekend. The current British ambassador to the United States, Lord Mandelson, knows a lot about this, as he was deeply entwined with Epstein's operations. Is that where this flap is being generated? Steve Bannon, who has been leading the charge on what's being called an Epstein cover-up by him, also knows better. Steve Bannon was hired as a consultant for Jeffrey Epstein immediately after Bannon was fired from the first Trump administration. His job was to rehabilitate Epstein's image. Bannon knows that Epstein's deviant sex involved paying prostitutes of all ages to service him, and that he was primarily an operative in the dark world of organized crime and intelligence, what I call Dope Incorporated. His sex crimes were personal. The internet memes about a mythical, vast Epstein sex ring resemble QAnon in their ability to destroy the critical thinking of everyone who gets absorbed in them. They divert attention away from real child trafficking, which should demand our attention, like the 300,000 missing kids in the hands of human trafficking cartels now lost in our country because of Biden. So So how do you find the truth in this environment? Well, the great poet and historian Friedrich Schiller was a huge fan of our American Revolution, and he originally thought the French Revolution was just like ours. But then he witnessed with horror that revolution descending into a terrorist bloodbath and then into Napoleon's dictatorship. The cause, he said, was that a great moment has found a little people. We can't be little at this great moment now. Our British imperial enemy understands well how to exploit both our ignorance and an elite which has lost its moral compass. They've been doing it for centuries throughout their colonial empire. Taking that great educational task upon yourself and studying the great thinkers of friends and allies is what the leaders of Trump's Republican Party must do now, and what we here at Promethean Action aim to provide to you. So, as Tulsi Gabbard told you from her inside position as Director of National Intelligence, this is a war in which we have yet to vanquish the enemy. They are fall for cheap ideas or simple-minded, emotion-laden plots about non-existent conspiracies. Finding the truth requires intellectual stamina, along with a kind of Socratic examination of principles and method which our founders used. We're adding a new weekly show with Susan and myself to help in this educational process. If you go to Promethean Action and become an email member, you'll be the first to know the time and date. A lot more of these developments in posts on the website. Thanks very much for listening. I'll see you again on Saturday.
What you got to say now, girlfriends, boyfriends, and everyone else who isn't or is a friend? To all 666 of you. Was that just not an interesting little introduction for the first 33 minutes? I went from food to, hold on, I got one more breaking topic here. Oh, I almost forgot. Hold on, you guys will love this one.
Is on a roll right now. They are accomplishing an enormous amount, and whatever,
Yeah,
you know, this kerfuffle about Jeffrey Epstein and whatever secrets may or may not be hidden by the government today, can't cloud out the extraordinary accomplishments of this administration. And as you point out about the transparency, it's also important to remember, and I know you remember this because we talk about it all the time, there has been extraordinary transparency from this government, from the Trump administration. And you can point to things like the border, which I think is the single greatest accomplishment, kept promise of any candidate who has ever run for public office. It is extraordinary what Trump has done at the border, and that's what he ran
not
his
what this is
campaign
about.
on. Another thing that he ran the campaign on was tariffs.
Yeah.
And he promised that he was going to rewire the way the economy works in hopes of it being a better place for people who work, a better place for young people, working class people. I hate the word working class, but working people who don't make as much money and want to get a purchase into the American dream. And his payoff for the month of June, the federal government ran a massive $27 billion surplus, which is for the month of June, which is an extraordinary thing. The fact that we're running a surplus at all, and when you look back and think about all the poo-pooing that the media did, and all of the economic experts who said this would never happen and Trump was going to destroy the economy, they are all been proved wrong by this one man, Donald Trump.
I mean, look at these headlines, CNBC. By the way, Wall Street Journal, CNBC, these are all the money experts. They were saying tariffs are going to raise much less money than the White House projects. Donald Trump, and this, by the way, reminds me of the situation of the border.
Well, you definitely know not to listen to those obviously.
Where he was told by, all the experts and all the consultants, you're going to lose the Hispanic vote if you want to close the border. You talk about, deporting people. That's not true. It turns out Hispanics believe in rule of law.
And that you could never close the border.
And that was the other thing. He said, yes, you can if you put your mind to it. He knew that because he kind of was already getting there. In 2020, we had, before he left office, we had the first time, we had the safest border we had ever seen. But now we're down to like zero, like nobody's crossing the border. But look at these headlines of all the naysayers saying that Donald Trump's idea of tariffs would destroy the economy, would not result in anything.
That was then, and this is now, right?
So April 1, CNBC says
this is specific for nickel stacker, and your tariffs are going to kill America.
Tariffs will likely raise much less money than the White House projects, economists say. On Friday, CNBC, Treasury boasts unexpected surplus in June as tariff receipts surge. Reuters on April 4th, Trump tariff now so fears of trade wars, recession, and a $2,300 iPhone. Thursday, last week, U.S. customs duties top $100 billion for the first time in a fiscal year.
It's incredible. And again, they predicted, Kevin, trade wars that we would be, the pariah of the economic world, that nobody would want to work with us, that we'd lose. It's not true.
Not true. And not only not true, it goes back to what Scott Bessent, I think, told you.
Well, see, Mo Silver, and I'll give you your point. I'll give you that point. But check this point out. Okay, that was at a low point of imports. It would be more like 40 to 50 billion coming in here shortly, which would give it over 1 year, say 50 billion, 100 billion, $750 billion coming in new revenue at a minimum. Okay. So you can knock that off of the yearly, because you got to do the numbers right, because you threw out the 37 trillion, but they got that 37 trillion not all in 1 year. How they got that number is, over 10 years this happens. Over 10 years it'll be this. Over 10 years it'll be this, and the total is 37 trillion. You got to know how they get to that number. That's how they're fooling most people. And I'll probably do a show on how they're bullshitting all of us on these numbers. But that shows a trade turnaround. We now have money coming in from the goods and services that were coming in that we weren't getting money from, but our money was being taken from. So that's just one key element. The other key element was the earlier part of the show was the Department of Education will be dismantled. That, if you look at the show that I did a few days earlier about Javier Milei and what he did in Argentina and how quickly no one in the world projected that he could turn around and go from 100% inflation down to 24% inflation and increase his GDP up to 7.9. But he actually did. And he did it in 6 months. How he did that is he cut the government and he started bringing in money. That's phase one. When it gets ramped up on the good numbers and not low numbers like the 27 billion, I'm projecting it to be about 50 billion, maybe more. Might be a lot more. I'm low on these numbers. That's like $750 billion a year. So over 10 years, that's 7.5 trillion. So you can take that off that 37 trillion now. Now it drops down to 30 trillion. Now you add in, hold on, wait a second. You add in, we are owed about $10 trillion from foreign countries. So if we collect our debt that is owed to us, you can take off another 10 trillion. That drops down to 20 trillion. Now, since we found out that the Biden auto pen isn't legal, well, that $6 trillion he put for future spending onto that budget, it could be taken away now too. So now it drops down to 14 trillion. We are still bringing in $5 trillion a year, 4.9 trillion in tax revenue. How long will it take to balance the budget? Wow, hold on. We haven't added in manufacturing increasing and growing, increasing the amount of tax revenue and increasing the amount of surplus from tariffs and taxes. And next thing you know, if you'd voted for me for president, I could have you a balanced budget in 8 years. And that 37 trillion would look like a peon poo-poo. It would be like, no, we have a surplus. Now we're going to take care of the unfunded debt and start getting this country back again. But you guys didn't vote for me, and that's understandable. I voted for me. I feel you. I feel you. Well, also what I didn't finish was, well, once all this stuff happens, the banks are going to look at us again and increase our credit rating, which will even lower the percentage on that loan, because that 37 trillion is because we got a decreased credit rating, so they increased our percentage of payments per month and that increased that loan. So when that reverts, that also drops it down. Like I said, if you guys had voted for me president, I'd have had us a balanced budget probably within 4 years, but definitely with from the next generation. But it wouldn't have been me. See, it's not me. It's the time in history. Cycles, even Economic Ninja talks about cycles are changing. When the cycles are changing, that means things are changing. Monetary systems are changing. The way governments work are changing. Lots of things change. They focus you on the smaller things to keep you divided and not what's going on. When they say they're going to bring it back to where a man can work and mom can stay at home and raise the kids, that's going to happen. It's going to be freaking awesome. You're talking about Lynette Zhang, of course. Yeah, let's stick with this channel. I'll bring you up to date on what's going to happen, while everyone else is fear mongering you for views. State it. When it's time to change, you have to rearrange. And I bring up in the 40s, you know, the guy who had the career as the Iceman and the Milkman, their lives were devastated. The whole world came to them because of the refrigerator. The whole world ended because those two careers went away. Those men could no longer feed their families. They died pathetically poor out in the streets. Oh, no, that's not what happened? Okay, it won't happen this time either. They need humans, bro. They ain't going to kill us off, man. They ain't going to kill us off. They've killed enough off. That killing off time is over. Adapt, adjust, and overcome. That's why I say you see a brick, pass through it, go over it, under it, or around it. It's no longer an obstacle. Or you use it in a catapult to break down the next wall you come up on, in which case you took advantage of the rock. Of course it does, Silver. I already went through how I, as an uneducated non-politician, within 4 years could bring the debt down to $8 trillion, bro. You just got to rewind and see. It's all in the way they work those numbers and the lies that you believe about those numbers. And the numbers they don't add in there that balance that off. See, because that's debt that we owe. What about the debt that we are owed? It's 37 trillion. We're owed 1/3 of that. So if we collect in, so whoever wants to collect on us, if we collect on what's owed on us, that drops by 1/3. We no longer owe 37 trillion. We owe 27, 26, somewhere around there, trillion, just instantly. And no, then of course you find out that the Biden pen signing thing was not legal. So that 6 trillion he put in future, it no longer has to be spent, so you can take it off. Take it off the numbers, because they're adding numbers of money to be spent that has not yet been spent. 6 trillion, I know for a fact, and that all went to the Green New Deal, and that can all get reversed right now because that was an illegal auto pen signing. So if we collect in the debts owed us and just get rid of the fraudulent spending that we had, and cut the Department of Education and the future 10-year spending or not spending of that money for all the stuff you have to pay for all those employees and benefits and stuff that you're not spending now, it totals up to, I don't know, close to $37 trillion. So, boom, there you go, paid off. And that's if we don't get manufacturing. And you know what tariffs are going to do? Here, imagine this concept. I don't want to pay 100% tariff. I'm going to move to America and make it there. Holy shit, does that bring manufacturing back to America? I'll be a son of a bitch. It damn sure does. Wow, so we're going to have manufacturing again, just like I said years ago. And I said there's a V-shaped recovery. I'm watching it befold right before our eyes. Has it happened yet? No, but it's setting up. All the dominoes are lining up for a V-shaped recovery. We have to hit the bottom first before the recovery. But if you have dry powder and you're positioned properly, woo, boy, howdy. And a way to look at that also, Silver Rugger, is that's the first. The first is always the lowest. Once the tariffs get worked out, that'll jump up. Like I said, I projected 50 on the low end every month. It'll probably be more like 100 billion every month. I mean, if you know how the hey, what's up, Jeffer? If you know how they work the budget and the numbers, their 10-year projected numbers all added up and thrown at your face right now. Those 10-year projected numbers, well, you got 9 years to change them. They don't tell you that, do they? No, they sure don't. Like I said, in reality, it's not, it is as bad as you see it, but it's not as bad as they want you to see it. Well, here's another thing. What if they introduce gold-backed bonds? What happens to bond buying then in the whole bond buying market? Doesn't that change the whole fucking factor of everything? Well, yes, Neil, it sure does. So, you know, things can change. For it to be a total fucking apocalyptic time means nothing's going to change and no one's working to make it better, and it's all going to be the same. Unfortunately, Harris isn't president, so obviously that's not going to happen. So things are changing. We all know they set us up for failure. Do you think just by fucking getting a new man in a position in a couple of days changes 4 years of most of the rich people in this nation and most of the governors and most of the senators working to set us up for destruction can be changed in a couple months? No, it takes a while. I said this last year, early part of last year, beginning of Q3, or in Q3, not beginning, in Q3 of this year, most people will be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, if that does hold true and you don't believe any of the crap that I'm saying now, when it comes true, you can say, oh, well, now I kind of sort of got to believe the crap he's saying because he actually has a vision that I'm not visualizing because I have a perspective that you don't have. And it's easy to get. You just got to look in the right spots and get the right information and put it together. And then you'll start naturally washing the bullshit aside and seeing exactly what they're doing and why they're saying what they're saying and how the words they're using and all this other stuff. And you won't fall into the trap of feelings, nothing more than feelings, getting involved in logical conversations about policies. When the fuck has feelings ever come into policies that worked successfully without a war? I would say never. So why are we doing that now? Oh, that's right, because we're being told we're stupid and we're acting stupid. I agree. Let's stop that. We have the power. Blue Ranger, power activated. Yeah, we have the power, guys. We don't have to believe and fall in. Oh, well, Nancy down the street is all upset making a sign gun protest. Let's join her. What the fuck's she doing? Let's find out. Then you'll probably find out, let's stop her before she makes an ass of herself. Would be a better thing to do, but you can't do that if you're not informed properly. And what people love is they love TV time and they don't love being informed. How can I tell? I see the dumbasses out protesting. They're obviously not informed. Most people aren't informed of what's been happening. Again, it started way before 1913, but they actually were able to successfully grab the financial institutions of America in 1913 when they were able to unconstitutionally bring in an unconstitutional branch of an unconstitutional thing into our system called the Federal Reserve. That same year, they did another illegal thing. They said, we're going to make all Americans slaves and we're going to make them pay for it. And then the British elitist, imperialists just started laughing, because then all of a sudden Americans started coming up with tax money to give to the Federal Reserve, which wasn't an American government organization at all. At all. Did you hear that? It's not an American organization at all, funded by us illegally. You want to know who's to blame? Us. Because we're not informed enough to know that everything going on has been farced. It's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, everyone gets paid off, brother. And sometimes, you got to live 113 years before people start slapping people around saying, hey, this is what it really is about. Wake up before you lose your country. That's all I'm trying to do. And that's what the Promethean Project's trying to do. I just found those ladies, but I've been pretty much on their page for fucking 50 years. I never knew they existed till about a week or two ago. I mean, they're like fucking on top of it. So yeah, I'm pushing the hell out of those. Those ladies got a good show. They got a good thing going, and they are very informative and to letting you know the psyops of insurgency. We played it on the Russians back when Hasselhoff, Ghost Rider, Knight Rider, Hasselhoff, he has a couple gold records, rock and roll records. I've never heard a fucking one of them because they were all paid in Eastern Europe when the wall was up at Berlin, and the CIA used his music to infiltrate behind the wall of Russian suppression and oppression, and the kids sucked up his music and bought the frell out of his records. And that's why if you listen to any of his records that are gold records, they're all American patriotic records. Most of them sold to Eastern Bloc nations during the Cold War. It's called a psyop. It worked so successfully, Reagan was able to bring down the frickin' Berlin Wall because of that psyop. It's a psyop that's being played on us for many years. We were born into it. You were born plugged into that matrix of slavery to the imperialists through taxation. That's not how it works. America successfully navigated 100+ years of its now history up until 1913. We didn't have income tax, and we went through 2 wars, increased the size of our nation, made a navy, made an army, funded them, all without income tax. It was done through tariffs. I would like to see that time come back because you know what I hate looking at my check. Well, not that I've had one in a while, but I hate looking at my check and seeing 40% of it gone to taxes, knowing that it's going to someone controlling my country for their profit and I'm paying for it. It's called financial slavery and we accept it. I woke up a long time ago. I don't know. I must have hit my head or did some good acid or something, but I woke up to it a long time ago. That's why I really don't have a lot of friends because when I first learned long time ago about this, I started talking about it, and trust me, 40 years ago, if you were talking this shit, you were ostracized. No one wanted to have anything to do with you because they were making money times for good. Who gave a fuck? And that's what they do to slaves. A perfect example, look at Venezuela over the past 25 years and find out why their people are so poor when they were so damn rich. Look at the paperwork, see what happens, see how the government worked them. It's stick and carrot, man, stick and carrot. That's because Knight Rider's in the shop still. Or was it Kit? Yeah, Kit's still in the shop, man. They never upgraded his technology with with AI and what are those LEDs? Yeah. Oh, Gerald, give me a call later. I forgot to tell you something. But anyhow, I'm glad I brought these reports to you. I hope it enlightened you to a different thought process. And if you already have that thought process, I hope it gave you some ammo to put in your belt. So when someone comes up to you with some stupid stuff, the smart thing to do is just walk away. But if you want to try and enlighten them, I mean, hopefully you have a few more bullets of enlightenment in your 6-shooter. That's funny. Now, the funny thing about that, too, the reason why the LBMA, I believe, LBMA banks in such serious trouble. And I did a report on this about 2 years ago. They are the only central bank that values in their country the housing market. They value houses in gold, not in currency. So if houses are bought and sold, the LBMA values it in gold. So when the price of housing goes down, they were 100% leveraged on their houses, using their houses as gold, and that's why they value their houses in gold. And under Basel III, they actually have to have physical gold, and they have none. And they've been trying to buy to catch up, and they realize because they're so far leveraged using all of the real estate housing in Europe, in England, as gold, as a substitute for gold, not the tier one asset, real stuff gold. They're up a fucking paddle with no creek, or with no shit. They're up the creek with no paddle and no water, and they got to get downstream fucking 5 miles in 2 minutes. They're fucked. Big time, big time, big time, big time. So you can anticipate LBMA doing some crazy. Of all the central banks, of all the banking institutions out there under the new regulations, they're the only ones that are screwed. And if you look at it, they're the only ones who ask for an extension, which only goes to June 30th, 2028, to come in compliance with Basel III. Every other central banks, that's why we had such a run of central banks buying gold. They were all coming in compliance. LBMA is not in compliance. They are fucked, and they are fucked because the way they leveraged the greed of the imperialists, the way they leveraged the paperwork of the last contracts that got us into 2008, was they valued their real estate as their gold holdings, because they value their housing in gold and not in fiat, and actually have physical gold holdings. You see the regulations? But that's why the LBMA is shit up a creek. And I don't smart person on YouTube who calls himself a financial advisor or says they do shit like that will tell you anything. But I will. Basically, yeah. No, it's because they were in control of the financial empire of the world. The LBMA was London, English. The whole thing about the Promethean Project, they were in control. What I just told you is exactly telling you that. They didn't think they had to follow the fucking financial rules of the world. And now they do. And they're fucked. Basically. And they've had years to comply, and they've chosen not to because of their arrogance over America. They were for sure that they had our political system tied up. And someone came along and trumped them. Well, I don't know who it would be, but I hope to enlighten you guys a little bit with what's really been happening, because that's why they attacked Trump right off the bat, because he was working to destroy everything, getting it to the point we're at right now. And we've come a long way, and they've done everything. And that's why you should know that the Epstein file shit's bullshit. Because if they knew, and for example, say it was for a fact, why didn't they use it when they were impeaching him the first term to get him out of office, to where he couldn't have ran again? If they'd have gotten this on him, he wouldn't be president now. Why did they wait with such good fucking information that could have kept him as a felon, not running second term? Why did they wait till after he got in to quote unquote release the facts? I mean, it's blatantly obvious, because they're not fucking facts. Just like Russiagate wasn't facts, just like the Hillary, the laptop is a fact, and they say isn't a fact. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Sound like Harry Potter trying to spell ridiculous. There is definitely a game going there. The game, who was that? The guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes, when he was writing Sherlock Holmes would say, "The game is afoot." You catching on. See, now what's happening, Jethro, is the Dems are the ones that are heavily supported by the imperialistic English. So now what's happened, it went from that right there, using reverse psychology on them because they didn't want and do not want the files listed, but they see an opportunity to attack him politically and weaken him. So they're saying, oh, he said he would release the files. Let's release the files. And the next thing's going to happen. A lot of people going to jail, hopefully. A lot of people go to jail, hopefully. But we'll see. It'll be a fine line we'll have to walk to prevent keeping us from going to a civil war, how it's unfolded. Big game of chicken or 5D chess, one or. But that's how I be seeing it. And that's why I brought you this whole 1 hour show to kind of break it on down so maybe you guys could see a vision that you haven't seen already about what's up? Why am I acting so crazy? Oh, it's not me, it's the rest of the world. Yep, it's the rest of the world that's crazy. You're actually sane. You know what's going on. And luckily enough, there's enough sane people in the right positions now that we should still worry big time, but don't work against them. I didn't bring it up because I'm gonna have a good time on my channel when this happens, bro. I'll tell you, I'm gonna probably dress up like a clown or something, have a real good fucking time. I don't know. Yeah, no, there's a lot of names that are gonna be. Oh yeah, release the list. There you go. Yep, but it's gonna be fun. Just keep your head on straight. Don't fucking get your feelings involved with headline news, and put some serious thought to shit before you fucking say, oh wow, it could be true. Because again, I go back to, if Trump truly was on the Epstein list, well, Biden was president for 4 years and they wanted to try and make him a felon. Don't you think being on the Epstein list would have prevented him from running for a second term? And since, well, when Biden was president, that's exactly what they were doing. They even said so. So why didn't they use this supposed truth? One of two reasons. Either they lied and they actually weren't working against him and they wanted him to be president, or it's a lie. And I'm throwing my money on it's a lie. And I'm throwing a lot of money on it because there's a good return on investment. Well, see, Mo Silver, if you're ever going to play chicken in a car, make sure it's a 68 Riviera, because they got a 454 big block and they weigh 4,400 pounds because they're solid steel. So if you hit any modern car, and you'll have to replace your bumper. So you'll have more confidence while playing chicken. I would actually play chicken with a Corvette, a 70s model Corvette. Fucker was all fiberglass with a solid gas car. Yeah, I'll take the steel car. There's a way to win at chicken, even if you do have to hit them. Yeah, that's not here nor there. I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. I hope it was somewhat enlightening, informing, and I hope you enjoyed the little bit about the food on the, or at least it got you interested in making your own syrups. Because as I stated, I actually made out of plums from a plum tree. I boiled them down, peeled them, boiled them, crushed them, added the sugar to it, and made plum syrup. And oh my God. Oh, well, there you go. I actually was wrong. And I said 67. It would be a 66 that you'd want. Thank you for correcting me on that. I was a year off. Bad, Neil. Bad, Neil. Ugh. Okay. I smacked myself on the back of the wrist. All right, but anyhow, I'm going to end this stream. I hope you guys have a great week, an awesome week. Make a lot of money. Look at crypto. Look at stocks. Look at precious metals. Look at the guy across the street might be selling his car real cheap because he's in trouble and you can turn a profit on it. Don't stick with one asset class. Opportunity knocks, jump on it. You guys have a great week and good luck to you and God bless.